Ohio State, one of the front runners to get that, the nation's #2 team, taking on Iowa. Mike Doss, Hall of Famer, being honored there for the Buckeyes, and they brought Jackson Smith-Njigba back. Came back after a 4-game absence due to injury. C.J. Stroud probably happy to have him back, at least temporarily. Stroud, though, here wasn't so happy. Got sacked by Joe Evans with the scoop and score, and the Hawks on top 7-3. Later in the first, it is Mayan Williams navigating his way through for his 9th touchdown of the year, and the Buckeyes on top 10-7. The Iowa defense kept Ohio State off rhythm here, Joshua.
Yes, and this is fantastic right here. Just pursuit off the backside, not giving up on a play, able to get a tackle for a loss. And then Iowa made a decision. When Ohio State's throwing the ball, C.J. Stroud is not going to be able to do it out of a clean pocket. Some pressure right there in his face. And then the same thing you're going to see here again. C.J. Stroud not able to really step into the throw. Can't connect up there. Great defense, really, by the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Late in the second quarter, it's 19-10. Tommy Eichenberg coming up with a play here, Howard.
Continues to play really, really well. Nice job there. A little confusion on where the ball was supposed to go, but he comes up and makes the play, runs it in for a pick 6.
Buckeyes on top 26-10 at the break. We go to the third quarter, and Alex Padilla coming in at quarterback for Iowa after Spencer Petras was ineffective. Padilla fumbled the first snap on his first possession and then gets intercepted by Tanner McAllister, his second interception of the day. 3 plays later, Ohio State taking advantage on a 4th and 1. It is Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., 4 touchdown passes for Stroud, 12th time in 19 career starts that he's thrown for at least 4 TDs. Finds Emeka Egbuka here. That is beautiful. 14-yard touchdown there. Buckeyes up 40-10. And then some of the finishing touches here from the Bucs. Julian Fleming. Can't do much better than that.
Literally walks on.
Stroud threw for 286, and Ohio State wins it by the final of 54-10. Their 8th straight home win over the Hawkeyes. Here's Jenny Taft with the winners.
Well, what we talked about at halftime was the defense had to continue to do what they were doing, which we thought they were playing very, very well. And the offense just needed to finish off some drives, and the scoreboard would look a lot different. We felt like we dominated on defense really in that first half. And then, in offense, they're very good on defense. And it was hard early on. And we stuck with it and then got the rhythm a little bit there in the third and beginning of the fourth.
You highlighted your defense there, but what specifically has Coach Knowles brought to this group? 6 takeaways today. I mean, that's impressive. What have you been most pleased with the way they've improved this season?
Well, the winning line of scrimmage, anytime you play Iowa, they do a great job of running the ball. But I think it's just the confidence. I think when you match the experience of last year, those guys got a lot of reps under their belt. And then, just the energy that Coach Knowles and his staff is bringing, it's making for complimentary football, and the guys are playing with confidence.
We struggled a little bit in the first half, couldn't really get our rhythm going. Then come out in the second half, I threw an interception. And, it just shows how tough our team is at the end of the day. Sometimes, even when we shoot ourselves in the foot, we just got to fight from that and be better. So we went in the locker room, got better. Even after the interception, everybody had my back. And then we got points up and got a rhythm going.
I felt like there was a bit of a sigh of relief. It's such a joy when you hit that 79-yard touchdown to Julian Fleming. All of you guys enjoying it and just celebrating on the sideline. What went into that play?
Yeah, we know what we can do. It's just sometimes coming off a bye, we can be a little rusty, and we just had to knock off some of that rust, and I think we did that. So it's good to come out here in front of Buckeye Nation and get another win. But, yeah, it felt good to get that long touchdown.
How about your defense and what you've seen this season? They had 6 takeaways today. They have been so committed to being better. How impressed have you been with the work they're putting in?
Everything kind of speaks for itself. Coach Knowles does a great job, super smart dude, and Tommy's leading him every week in practice. And I think that's where it starts, is having physical practices, practicing tough, and making sure that it goes to Saturday.
See you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.
He was great for 6 turnovers. Iowa had 6 all year coming into this game. This is the most points that Iowa's ever given up under Kirk Ferentz. So I think on the surface, you would look at a game like that and say pretty good for Ohio State. How would you judge the Buckeyes on this day?
It was a rusty day. I think that they fell short of what their standard is within that program for how they operate on offense. And it's funny that we say that, because you look at the output and the final scoreboard, and this offense was really able to put up points. So you have to look at Iowa's defense. They had given up 5 touchdowns all year long. Ohio State scores 5 touchdowns on offense. They were giving up less than 10 points per game. Ohio State goes out there. They score 47 on offense. They had the pick 6 there. Defensively, I think for as rusty and kind of, they were feeling their way through the first half of the game, the outcome that happened is perfect for them because you can be very critical as a player and a coach off of a win like this. And I think this is what they need to see, a big test from a really good defense.
When you say rusty, you mean because of the week off?
Just generally. I think there were a lot of pieces. You're trying to work Jackson in, and then he falls out of the game. I think the week off has something to do with that, but also going up against a really good defense that's structurally sound, there's some rust that comes with that because they hadn't seen a defense like that all year.
I mean, it's safe to say Jim Knowles' defense is installed and they're playing really well. I mean, significant improvement since the last few years with Ohio State on defense. The offense is a little bit puzzling. They were balanced as far as how many passes and how many runs they called, but they only gained 66 yards rushing. Michigan had 172 against the same defense. Illinois had 200 against the same defense. The two really talented running backs, Harrison and Williams, together only had 57 yards. And I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm just saying I'm questioning, is it a problem, right? This is a zone coverage team. They very rarely outnumber you in the box. So you have a hat for a hat. Does it matter? I don't know. But if you want to be critical, that's what you could be critical about.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's what this team was accustomed to. When you talk about this Iowa defense, you watch them play a lot of zone. Today, I think they mixed quite a bit of man into this, particularly when you look back at the highlights. And that may have been one of the things that was slowing this team down early because there were some missed passes, some passes behind, and I think you need to figure out where you got to go with the football. But I think they were preparing to see zone. Because when you look at CJ's numbers versus zone, he's completing 75% of his passes. That's where he has the most success when he's playing against teams that are trying to play zone against him, and he picks them apart. Today it was a little bit different, so timing was a little bit off as well. I think when they go back and look at it, I think they'll find that Iowa really started to mix things up and really forced them to be one-dimensional, taking the run away from them.
Well, even when Iowa's in that quarter's defense, so you get that extra downhill safety in there too once it declares his run, so he can fill in on the backside. So that mixes up the box count a little bit. But you mentioned the balance, and I think that's the biggest key because we've seen time and time again when the game plan doesn't go as they set out for Ohio State. In years past, they would just drop back and they would throw the ball around the yard. Right now, it shows the commitment that they're going to run it even when it's not working. I think it's a patient approach.
Okay, so let's say regardless of the coverage, it's still 172 yards for Michigan and 200 yards for Illinois running against them. Is that a problem? I don't know. I'm just saying, we always judge this team different. Right. They scored 54 points. Who's complaining?
Well, but now this is where it all comes together is all the coaches on offense are going to be sitting in that back room on Sunday and throughout this week trying to figure out, okay, how do we run against some of the looks that we saw on Saturday?
And the other thing is the morale of Henderson and Williams okay? I mean,
they'll be fine.
We're still talking about 6 straight games, scoring 45 or more points. That is the longest streak in the Big Ten since 2003. And yes, that is 1903 when Michigan did it against a number of lesser opponents. I mean, it's an overpowering offense.
Jerry
fellas.
saw that season.
Yeah, now come on now.
It's the first one of the year for me.
Real quick on Iowa. I mean, did not score an offensive touchdown. They've scored 7 in 7 games. They did make the quarterback switch at mid-game. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, it's a rough spot, and I think a lot of people wanted to see what the backup quarterback situation looked like with Padilla. He goes out there, looks very similar to what they had working before. Iowa's offensive line isn't what we're used to seeing out of them, and they're really lacking the skill to be explosive on the outside. So it's just going to be a tough year for them offensively.
Yeah, I think the only thing we can take is since they played Purdue at the end of the game, they're thinking about maybe they'll start him in the next game. Other than that, it's the same offense.
Yeah, it is the same offense. And when you watch a player like Zach Harrison have the type of day he had, really has a lot of upside and really has a lot of talent. But he really was controlling the line of scrimmage. When he had opportunities to make plays, he took advantage of them.
Second largest margin of defeat under Kirk Ferentz and the largest since his first season in 1999, actually his first conference game. The opposing coach was a fellow named Nick Saban. It was a while ago. 1999 was the last time Iowa lost a conference game by a margin that large. Okay, so Ohio State gets Penn State next week. The Nittany Lions taking on Minnesota. Their backup quarterback, Ethan Kaliakmanis, getting the start with Tanner Morgan out with the injury. Got the whiteout atmosphere, always special at Penn State. Pick it up in the first quarter. Sean Clifford.
Throw it up.
Yeah, Justin Wally comes down with it. Would lead to a Minnesota field goal for Matthew Trickett and gives the Gophers the early 3-0 lead. Penn State really utilized the tight ends nicely, particularly in this first half, guys. Clifford here to a wide-open Tyler Warren, Howard.
Yeah, really nice job of running that seam route right down the middle of the field. Nice throw and catch.
38-yard touchdown there. Later in the second quarter, Penn State getting a free play there. How about Mitchell Tinsley? We love this guy in camp, the transfer from Western Kentucky. That is a heck of a catch. 30-yarder, Penn State on the move again, and it's another tight end here, Joshua Theo Johnson.
Yeah, these tight ends are becoming an X factor, and you'd love to have a big target in the middle of the field, and those boys can run when they catch the ball, too.
So they extend the lead to 17-3. There's Ethan Kaliak-Manis showing off the wheels. Had 7 carries for 45 yards, 16 yards on that one. It set up Mo Ibrahim for the touchdown run. Gophers went into the half down 17-10. Mo did get over 100 yards once again. To the third quarter we go. It is Clifford. How about this catch, Jerry, by Parker Washington?
I mean, it's unbelievable how he concentrates and gets his hands up and body position. Fabulous catch.
First touchdown grab of the year. Nittany Lions on top 24-10. Jair Brown coming up with the pick there on Kaliak-Manis. And Brown weaving his way through sets Penn State up with some good field position, and on the ensuing drive, it is Nick Singleton taking it through for the touchdown. Penn State 175 yards on the ground on top 31-10. It is Clifford. It is Tinsley. Clifford's school record, 5th game.
Could I
with
be
4 or more
wide
TD passes. Yeah, there was a little miscommunication
A little bit.
on that Minnesota defense.
You might say a lot.
45-17. Well, I was trying to be kind. Hannah Mears
nice of you.
caught up with the Nittany Lions.
Coach Franklin, I see the guys over there holding that Governor's Victory Bell trophy to bring in here. How good did it feel to be a part of a unit that combined for over 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns today?
You know, it feels real good because, you know, it's just a matter of time. You know, we've been saying this since my freshman year that we have the best group in the country, and it felt good to finally be able to show everybody that what we already knew. So it felt real good, and it was great seeing all the guys making plays out there today.
Howard, 8th straight win for the Nittany Lions against unranked opponents. Good bounce back. They needed a game like this after what happened last week.
They did, because they were manhandled last week, and they really bounced back. And it was a little bit of a struggle early when it started. This was a game Minnesota was ready for, and in the first quarter, it looked like it was going to be a tough matchup, but then they were able to gain control. He talked about the defense playing so well early, and that was an important part of it, but you also saw the offense start to come on and start to make the plays in the passing game that they needed to go out and make.
Yeah, I'd say it's a slow bounce back. The pass game, I thought thought was really explosive. They blended it in the run game. You know, we just don't know, because you look at last week's Michigan game, you look forward to next week's Ohio State game, and there won't be any slow start there. I think next week's going to be a better gauge of how good this team is, as compared to the Michigan game and as compared to the Minnesota game.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I was going to talk about that same thing. You asked a question about, Ohio State and their run game and what their running backs' morale is going to be like. And it's 1 week, and it's the same thing for Penn State, seeing what they did today. They gave up 7.6 yards per carry against Michigan and gave up 3.6 today against Minnesota, who everybody knew was going to come into this game wanting to run the football. And you could see a different demeanor on the line of scrimmage defensively for Penn State. So I'm totally with you. I think that next week is probably going to be a better gauge here. But you like the building block of what they did today, because at least defensively, the things that they were poor at against Michigan, they were a lot better at this week.
And again, as you say, you didn't really have as much of the threat of the pass with Kaliakmanis in there. Obviously, Minnesota came into it with a mentality of trying to pound the ball a little bit, but still Penn State obviously gives them a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum heading into that huge showdown against Ohio State. Gophers, meanwhile, continue to struggle. 3 straight losses on the heels of a 7-game win streak. They've scored just 41 points in those 3 losses. The one bright spot was Mo Ibrahim. As we take a look at our auto owners insurance game leaders, he now is tied with Darrell Thompson all time in terms of scrimmage touchdowns at Minnesota. I mentioned went over 100 yards again, 15th straight 100-yard rushing game, the longest active streak in the FBS, and tied for the longest streak in the Big Ten this century with Zeke Elliott. So Mo Ibrahim continues to put up some great numbers. Purdue and Wisconsin, first home game as interim head coach for Jim Leonard at Wisconsin. Pick it up in the first quarter. Graham Mertz, Skylar Bell, beautifully done. 29-yard touchdown just like that. Badgers on top 7-0. And now on the first drive of the game for Purdue, Aiden O'Connell, John Torchio stepping in front. Remember, had the 100-yard interception return earlier in the year against Illinois State. So that is second pick 6 of the year, puts the Badgers on top 14-0. Later in the first, it is Braylon Allen, 41 yards and a first down, went over 100 yards for the 13th time in his career, got the Badgers into the red zone, and Mertz hits Chimere Dike, his 5th touchdown in his last 3 games. And looky here, first quarter, 21-0 in favor of the Badgers, and then it is Torchio again. O'Connell tied his career high with 3 picks. It has happened 3 times, and 2 of them have been against the Badgers. How about Allen punching it in here? They averaged nearly 8 yards per play in this game, Wisconsin did. On top, 28-3. Purdue trying to get back in it. O'Connell did throw for more than 300 yards. It's Payne Durham. Beautiful grab there to make it 28-10, but Badgers just too tough. There goes Isaac Garindo, Howard.
Really nice job of keeping his feet going, keeps his balance. And Purdue is just not doing a good job today of making tackles and filling holes.
Wisconsin on top 35-10, and icing on the cake here is O'Connell's picked off for the final time in the game. Wisconsin beats Purdue for the 16th straight time, 35-24 the final. Telly Hughes getting the reaction from Madison.
Coach, your first win as interim head coach at Camp Randall Stadium. How does that feel from being a Wisconsin walk-on and now picking up a win as a head coach?
It's an amazing feeling. You know, this program means so much to me, and I have so much support, right, from the players, coaches, fans, family. It's just an unreal feeling to get a win here in my first game at Camp Randall.
I know you have to feel proud about the way your defense came and set the tone early on, getting a couple of interceptions. And what was the key in doing that, and was that part of the game plan imposing you guys' will on that side of the ball?
We had to start out fast. You know, I think this is a young enough team that we need momentum. And to get off to the start we did on offense and defense was huge for this team, and we just fed off it the entire first half and really into the second.
Can't help but talk about this crazy streak. The last time Purdue beat the Badgers, you were on the field back in 2003, 16 wins in a row. Can you explain this streak over Purdue?
Thanks for the reminder, first of all, but I mean, it's impressive, you know, what over time has happened, it's credit to the players. You know, there's been a lot of change, and to have that consistency against the team is really incredible.
What was the key in terms of imposing you guys' will and setting the tone early?
Yeah, we harped on it all week. Defense got to make a play. We got to spark the offense. We got to spark the team, and just happened to be in the right spot, and I was able to do it today.
When you're a defense that have given up big plays and you're going against Purdue, this high-flying offense, did you guys kind of take it personal and say, hey, we got to step up in this one?
Absolutely. Based off our player in the year, we knew they were going to come at us. They're going to attack us, right? And we accepted the challenge, and I thought we did really well today.
It's one of those days we dug ourselves a hole early and without question couldn't get out of it. So, you know, our team doesn't have a whole lot of margin for error. We cannot do that. And, you know, we did fight to the end, but was not a good day for our football team, and Wisconsin flat out beat us. It's disappointing. So we'll let it burn and fester in us and, you know, sit on us the off week and burn us even more and hopefully drive us to want to improve and find a way to beat Iowa.
Built for Success brought to you by Rocket Mortgage. You heard some talk about it. It is now 16 straight wins for Wisconsin over Purdue. Yeah, Jim Leonard played the last time the Boilermakers won, actually brought a punt back for a touchdown in that one. That 16-game win streak, by the way, the second longest active streak in the Big Ten, behind only Ohio State's 27 consecutive wins over Indiana. So what do you make of the Badgers? This was a little bit of a bounce back as well after a disappointing performance last week. Really impressive here, just jumping on Purdue from the get-go.
And I think that's the biggest part about it. Defensively, this Wisconsin team looked different. It was early on in the game, Torchio stepping in front of that pass, taking it back to the end zone. That was a huge tone setter for them, and they just kept building upon that performance. And this is a Purdue team, as we know. This offense can just go off on you, and they can continue to pile up yards and eventually turn them into points. And the biggest thing that they did, especially early on in the game, they kept Purdue off the board, and I think that allowed their offense to eventually gain a little bit more confidence, too, as that lead grew.
You know, again, it's amazing. 7 days ago, this Wisconsin team, I thought was fairly flat. I didn't think they were really all that ready to play, and they lose to Michigan State. They were energized today. I mean, they were emotional. They were ready to play today. It's just incredible to me how emotions play in this game. Offensively, they were balanced. And Joshua, you just mentioned this. Last week, Michigan State, they tore the back end of them up. There was 7 plays for more than 15 yards. There was a 72-yard pass. There was 3 touchdown passes over 25 yards. And today, against a better pass offense than they faced last week, they play better.
Yeah, you saw this Badger team get back to running the football, I think 178 yards on the ground, which was impressive. But if you look at Purdue, and this is a team that's up and down, but when they turn the football over, it's a problem. 14 points off turnovers alone, that's the difference in this game. They're not good enough to do that.
Remember last week when we watched Jeff Brom in the press conference and he was kind of like, you know, yeah, we got to win, but I don't like the way that we did it. It was almost like he saw this type of performance coming from his team if they didn't tighten up, and they just didn't do it.
We'll get a little perspective on what it means for Purdue in the Big Ten race coming up in just a bit. But Northwestern and Maryland, Billy Edwards getting the start for the Terps in place of the injured Leah Tungavailoa. Brendan Sullivan going for Northwestern. Ryan Helinski was available, but Northwestern opted to make the change. Sullivan here hitting Malik Washington, 46 yards. Sullivan would take it in a couple plays later, give the Cats a 7-0 lead. Back comes Maryland. Roman Hemby in a big game, bowling his way into the end zone to tie it up at 7. Late in the second, Northwestern up by 3. They go up by 10 here. Sullivan to Evan Hull, 17-7 in favor of the Cats. It was 17-10 at the half. Northwestern on the move, but Sullivan makes a big mistake. Dante Trader, the interception, brings it back 24 yards on the first Wildcat turnover of the game, and that would lead to a Terp touchdown. It is Hemby again. 24 carries, 179 yards, 3 touchdowns, tied at 17. Then it's Edwards to Rakim Jarrett. Northwestern got just 1 stop in Maryland's last 6 drives, and that was a missed field goal as the D continues to struggle mightily in the post-Mike Hankwitz era, but able to battle back Andrew Clare for the 9-yard touchdown to tie it at 24. But on the very next play, there goes Hemby, Joshua.
I mean, this is a young player right here. making a big-time play really puts this game away. And a lot of guys don't have the resolve to do that. Hemby's one of those guys, man, who just got that edge.
So that gave Maryland the lead. Northwestern trying to answer. Sullivan, though, another turnover as the Cats once again multiple turnovers, which has been a huge issue, 6th straight game. Now, this perhaps could have been ruled intentional grounding on Maryland, which would have given Northwestern a free play, but no flags. So they just made sure the clock expired before the ball hit the ground. The replay confirmed that it did, and so Maryland gets the win, 31-24. Here's Rick Pizzo with the Terps.
An odd finish, but the result that you wanted. How did you guys get this done? Kind of flip the script a little bit in the second half.
We did it. We ran the ball a little bit more. We kind of settled things down on the inside. You know, with the young quarterback playing, they kind of did things a little differently than what we saw with all the interior rushes, which to take away the run game, I thought Billy settled down in the second half. He trusted the process of starting point and ending point with his eyes, made the big throw to Rock, and then, you know, Roman Hemby came through big when we needed him.
What makes Roman so special?
You know what? It's his unselfishness. I mean, he's a guy that we call smart, tough, reliable. He's going to be where he's supposed to be, and then obviously he's got big play speed.
How aware were you and how much pride did you take in the fact that Coach Loxley and Coach Enos were going to put this on you in the second half and ask you to kind of carry this team to the victory with the run game?
You know, it's a lot about an execution type of thing for us. So when it got down to the stretch and I knew that they had to rely on the run game, it was just coming down to doing my job. And, you know, I knew that everybody else was going to do their job, so I had to come through and, you know, make a play for our team.
You know, disappointing loss to say the least. Now, this is 4 times that we've been in one-score games, that we've had every opportunity to win the game, and, you know, our mistakes have led, unfortunately, to us not being successful. So I thought our guys came in ready to play. I thought we battled our tails off. I'm really proud of this group that's being, I think, as resilient as they can be, but we cannot continue to make critical mistakes down the stretch.
Indeed, we'll get to the Cats in just a second, but let's start with Maryland. 6-2 now, so they're bowl eligible. This is the best start for them since 2010. And to get this win, Jerry, when Leah was out, now they get the bye to get him healthy. Pretty important.
Important and an incredible win. I mean, here's what happened. Maryland was ready to play. I mean, I think Northwestern was even more ready to play. Maryland was ready to play, but they weren't sky high. They're playing with a first-time starter at quarterback. They go in at halftime, and they want to settle Edwards down the second half. They run the ball more. So you have this staff that understands. They've gotten some new looks, as Mike Loxley said, right? Northwestern had a week off. So you had all these things going on with a staff that made the adjustments, and that's why they're bowl eligible. This was a tremendous growth for this program.
I think you talk about being able to take those incremental steps to becoming a program that can be reliable and can go out and compete at a high level each and every week, even when they have a setback. I thought even with Edwards, being able to run the ball, being a part of that run game was significant for them, because that's not really something that they do a lot of with Talia. He's going to stay back in the pocket. I think the fact that he was able to really get involved in the run game helped this offense get settled down as well.
This program gained more today by having a tough win than an easy win.
I definitely agree with that. You guys mentioned the run game. I think it's really big, but Maryland took the football away a couple times in the second half of that game, and I think that makes all the difference too, because their defense in the first half was looking very uncharacteristic. There were Wildcats wide open. They were struggling with the quarterback run game. They made the adjustments at halftime on defense too, and they really paid off.
Sullivan a little bit better for Northwestern, but it's still 12 losses in 13 games, guys. That is their worst stretch of football in 32 years. And Northwestern football 32 years ago was not something you wanted to watch. So they got to figure it out here, but a little bit better offensively, I think, is the one positive you would take from it.
Yeah, I mean, Sullivan looked like a guy who can give you a little bit of juice on offense.
Yeah, but again, 6 straight losses. That is the longest skid in the Power 5. Indiana and Rutgers. It's an important ceremony here, fellas.
Yeah, so the night is...
Don't worry about it. We're moving on.
Okay,
we're moving on.
All right, sir. Just trying to contribute something.
Jalen Lucas contributing a kickoff return to start the game. That is the first kickoff return touchdown for the Hoosiers in 10 years in Indiana.
Wow.
Starts the game up 7-0, and then Connor Bazelak makes it 14-0 in favor of the Hoosiers. Second quarter, same score, and Rutgers starts the comeback. Noah Vedral Sean Ryan, West Virginia transfer, makes a great grab there, and Rutgers back within 7 at 14-7. Now it's 14-10. Samuel Brown, outstanding young back, went over 100 yards for the first time in his career, and Rutgers on top 17-14, and then Bazelak under pressure. Christian Braswell brings it back for the TD that sealed the deal. Rutgers wins at home for the first time in a conference game in 5 years. Here's Elise Menaker.
Coach, it's the first time that you guys have won a Big Ten game at home since 2017. What does this win not just mean for your program today, but overall?
Well, it's certainly great for our program, and God brought a bunch of great people here. I love these kids. They work their tail off, and it's discouraging at times, but they kept working, and now we just got to keep moving forward.
I was going to ask about your defense because, they certainly adjusted to that Indiana offense. Why were they able to be successful?
I think they're good coaches and good players. They just had to get a feel for the tempo, and once they did, I felt they really got into a groove.
Well, Christian, first I have to ask about your pick six. What did you see on that play?
I just played the coverage that the coach called. I was being patient, and it came to me. And I kept saying it to our players all game, and it came to me, so I just got the opportunity and I took it.
Describe for me just the reaction that you got from your team. It was electric on the sideline.
And I feel like they know that because they know what I've been through with my injury and stuff like that. So it's like, just to see me do something like that and play at the level that I'm playing, that they know what I do. They know the work that I put in. So it's just I'm ecstatic to be out here. I'm ecstatic.
Just highly disappointed. The third quarter was just, I think 3 and outs, not able to stay on the field. Defense took a ton of too many reps. Got them wore down a little bit, but they bowed up. They gave us a chance, and so, but just continue not to be able to execute well on offense is very disappointing.
Again, the big story here at Rutgers, they had lost 21 consecutive conference home games, tied for the longest streak in the history of major college football, 1,813 days without tasting a home conference win. How'd they get this one?
I think it was the defense for Rutgers, and you start to look at the beginning of the game. Indiana gets off to a really hot start. First quarter, it looks like they're getting ready to run away with it. Then Rutgers starts to make adjustments, a lot of it coming through pressure, and they're able to slow down this Indiana offense. You look at the second half of this football game, 3 points for Indiana, -8 rushing yards. Rutgers is able to score on defense. It seems like a pretty good plan to win.
Yeah, Schiano's plan is rush for 200, which he did, give up one defensive touchdown because the other touchdown was the kickoff return, and then they got a pick six. You talk about Indiana, we talked about this earlier today, having trouble the second half. It might have something to do with this. As much as you practice, Joshua, you're probably the one at the desk who has experienced this as a player. You practice this fast offense if you're a defensive player, but it's never as fast as it is in the game. And sometimes you play that first half as a defender against the real tempo of Indiana, which is faster than what you saw at practice, and you just shut it down because you're more comfortable with it the second half.
You heard Coach Allen talk about not being able to stay on the field, those 3 and outs. 2 of 13 third down conversions. Can't win many games like that, particularly when you're not being explosive on the offensive side.
Well, whatever it is in those second halves, they've been fatal here for Indiana. They've been outscored by 60 points in the second half of their 5 conference games.
And Tom is totally frustrated. I mean, it's written all over his face, and he's tied up coaching defense. It's a tough box to be in.
Yep. Absolutely.